Keith Brimacombe left an indelible impact on the university at British Columbia, the people he mentored, and the industry he studied.
He was, I would say, a visionary, a pioneer, an incredible ability to understand how to connect very disparate pieces of information to provide insight that nobody had actually thought about.
Keith was a little bit unique as a visionary, as he actually looked at the ground we were standing on. He worked with existing industries, he worked with existing technologies, and it was all about improving our understanding of those technologies.
Where some researchers would be happy making a major contribution in one area, Keith Brimacombe was dedicated to researching many ferrous and non-ferrous processes.
The remarkable thing is the areas I worked on with him were 2 of probably 10 areas that he was working on simultaneously. Just a remarkable intellect and capability.
Many of the improvements and advances made by Keith involved processes key to the mining industry, like his work with zinc fuming and the Pierce-Smith converter. It was his approach to studying these areas that made him unique.
No one in the world had ever done that until he came along and really demonstrated how you could do it most effectively.
Probably his biggest contribution is in the computer modeling of continuous casting processes. And by doing that, he really greatly enhanced our understanding of how that process operates.
Keith developed working relationships with and obtained support from many of the industry's major companies.
What was unique about Keith is that he was willing to go into industry, make measurements, and try and understand how this process operated in fundamental ways.
He was an advocate of building pilot-scale models for research at the university and of bringing various disciplines together to solve problems. The Brimacombe building at the University of British Columbia is a working example of that vision.
Keith's legacy at the University of British Columbia and perhaps around the world were the people he mentored. There's no question. I think he probably has close to 80 graduate students that were educated by him, and many of us have gone on to have very successful careers.
When I first got a chapter back from Keith, back in the day, he would edit with a red pen, and it literally looked like it was covered in blood. I used to call it the bloodletting exercise. He felt that it was really important to spend a lot of time with you in writing that document and getting that document as good as it could be to best pull out the ideas that came out of that work that you put into it.
One thing about Keith that you knew when you talked to him was he was deeply interested in you as a person and cared deeply about your intellect, your intellectual growth, as well as your personal life. I have to say that without his mentorship in what was largely a male-dominated field, there is no question I would never be the person that I became. Keith was remarkable because he had this incredible amount of energy. He worked unbelievable hours. I mean, his family will tell you that he probably woke up at 4 or 5 in the morning and he'd be working till 10 or 11 at night, and he kept really long hours.
Often called an ambassador for the mining industry, Keith accomplished a lot in a short time. He held over 100 positions in more than 30 industry, educational, and government associations and committees. He also taught over 50 courses in companies around the world.
You could travel the world, literally, and you'd bump into people that knew Keith either in person or by virtue of the impact he'd had on a particular field. So it was quite incredible.
He also authored 10 books, published almost 300 papers, and obtained 15 patents. Keith received over 28 major national and international awards. He was instrumental in obtaining several $1 million in research funding. In 1985, he established the Center for Metallurgical Process Engineering. In 1997, Keith took a leave of absence from UBC to become the founding CEO and president of the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, a government initiative to foster world-class research in Canada. Keith died young, suffering a fatal heart attack at age 54. He was born in Windsor, Nova Scotia, and raised in Rosalind, Alberta, where he developed a passion for knowing how things worked. Keith went on to gain world recognition and accomplish more than most could in several lifetimes. At UBC, he developed a culture of working with industry that is still embraced by students today.
They pick up on that culture. They recognize the importance of that culture and how it's made the people that have adopted it successful.
That is incredible. Almost 20 years has passed since he was doing research, and yet his influence is profound. And I think these two legacies, the transformation that he effected on the steel industry and also in metallurgical process engineering, I think are unparalleled in terms of a contribution.